We normalize you not being the problem every time you date someone and it doesn't work out. Can we normalize that dating is doing its job when we get connections with people and then it doesn't work out because we're not compatible or because we just don't get along very well or avoidant attachment, anxious attachment? I get it, right? Like, I get that we're trying to solve for and really control the outcome of dating someone because maybe we don't want to be dating. We want to be in a relationship and we keep trying to do that with people that can't do that with us. And it's triggering all this childhood shit. And really, I started learning attachment styles to understand the experience I was having. That where I think has in TikTok culture gotten a little too extreme is that we now try to use this to control or manipulate situations of like, it says avoid an attachment and here's what happens and then I'm going to do this and I'm going to ignore all my feelings. I have a theory about attachment styles that probably is labeled a secure attachment, although I didn't read that part in the book. But I believe our attachment styles are only triggered when we're with an unsafe partner. Right? Like, yes, you can have your anxiety come up when your partner pulls away and you don't have a reason for it. Guess what? We don't blame it on attachment styles. We blame it on the fact that, hey, I'm having a feeling about a story I'm creating in my head. And so I need to go check with my partner if that story is true or not before I go blaming it on attachment style. Like his avoidant attachment is coming up. And I get it because you're trying to solve for things that don't make sense to your logical brain, but that's okay if you are dating someone or you dated someone and it didn't work out and your nervous system didn't like that experience. Cool. Dating did its job. So understanding attachment styles and just kind of how they play into relationships is fine, but it is a means for you to become more secure, not project onto your partner or blame your experience on an attachment style. He didn't show up for you. Right? Like if you had a healthy partner and you were starting to have anxiety about where the relationship was going, then a healthy partnership would be we talk about it and we get on the same page, not we blame it on attachment styles and chalk it up to attachment styles. Like that is going to keep you in a cycle of going through attachment styles and blaming attachment styles. When you start to project blame onto things external to you, you become the victim in that. I'm a victim of being an anxious attacher who always attracts the avoidance, right? Like that kind of narrative doesn't help you actually get what you want in a healthy relationship. If you can go through the attachment style understanding, the workbooks and the trainings and all that, it's about you healing your attachment style, not projecting or looking at what your partner is or isn't doing. I think we're missing the point completely when we are heavily emphasizing attachment styles as the reason why people are the way that they are. And it's putting you in this victim, I can't control it, therefore it just happened to me kind of a thing, rather than you being radically responsible for the outcomes of your life. Now, this for me, anytime I start to look at my partner as a problem, my ex-husband had PTSD and I blamed so much of his behavior on the PTSD that it discredited my entire experience. I was doing that. I was blaming his anger, his rage, his outbursts, his maltreatment of me on the PTSD, as opposed to this is a person who has a diagnosis that is not getting help for it and also treating me poorly. For years, I blamed the PTSD as opposed to holding somebody accountable for not being a good partner. That's all this is, right? So this attachment style, while it may give some explanation, right? Any mental health diagnoses may give some explanation as to why the behavior is happening, but you are gaslighting yourself if you are not holding that person responsible for still treating you like shit, right? Or not being a good partner. And so I think attachment styles need to be an education for you and how to not let your attachment style hijack your nervous system, and for you to get curious about where that attachment style was created in childhood and to heal those parts of you that go anxious or avoidant or whatever, right? And do the internal work so that when those situations come up again, you can choose different responses and work on your own emotional regulation so you don't project it onto the relationship or onto your partner or sabotage a perfectly decent relationship, instead of using it as a get out of jail free card for that person because they have this attachment style, right? If a relationship doesn't work between an anxious and avoidant, it's because one or both of those partners were not working on healthy communication and nervous system regulation so that it got so uncomfortable that the relationship failed. It's not because of attachment style. It's because they weren't willing to do the work to make the relationship work. Right? Right? I don't know. Am I out on left field on this? Am I just completely missing the point of attachment styles? Because I think it's just become this excuse for people to suffer, right? Like, because I went through this, right? Like that, I was with a fearful avoidant or dismissive avoidant. He never took the test because he didn't research it. But this is where I started to learn about attachment styles. But it wasn't to excuse the behavior and the way I was being treated and the way that things were being projected onto me and that communication dropped off. Like there were plenty of opportunities in my situationship where it was the dismissive and I was a little bit more anxious, where I opened up conversation to try to get us to communicate as to what was happening and him pulling back and how could I support him and what did he need, and he couldn't communicate that. I even went so far as to go to therapy because I knew that stuff was coming up for me. And he's like, we're early on in this. You shouldn't be going to therapy. I'm like, it has nothing to do with the dynamic between us. It has to do with what's coming up for me that I want support with. Right. And so instead of using this attachment style like a third party in the relationship, look at the behavior. It's a language. If they are aware of attachment styles, cool. What are they doing to become more secure? What are you doing more to become more secure? If they're pulling away from you and that's hurting you, open up a dialogue about it. How do they respond? Do they recognize and take ownership over the fact that their actions have a negative effect on you? If not, that's a pretty clear indicator of how much they really care about you, right? So let me know your thoughts and comments on how you use attachment styles in dating. Are you using it as a scapegoat for being treated poorly? Is that creating more suffering for you because you're so hyper-focused on understanding attachment styles and looking for it in your partner and all that it just becomes this new narcissist thing that people want to talk about and blame everything on? Like, is it becoming a scapegoat for you, or is it actually a tool that's helpful for you to understand yourself and what your needs are in a relationship and how you can have a healthier connection with a partner in the future? Let me know in the comments. And hey, if you're really struggling with this is what I work on with clients. We work through the belief systems that create this, where that attachment style comes from, how to heal it from childhood, because it's usually our attachment with our parents that we're then trying to recreate as adults. Like, we unpeel and unpack all of that so that you can start to have healthy choices and make new choices for new outcomes. So you're not repeating cycles and patterns and continuing to have the same miserable experience in dating, because it doesn't have to be that way. It can be fun. It can be healthy. It can be educational. You can learn about yourself.